All right. Baltimore. Ooh. All right, everyone. And as folks come in, certainly shout out where you are calling in from. So we have people from Florida, from Texas, from Oregon, from Baltimore. So like all across the country on the call today. So yeah, so like we're really excited. And of course, today's BNI talk, like all of them, later will be uploaded to our BNI USA YouTube page. Very, very excited about this talk today. First of all, I have a legend, a literal legend in BNI on the call. So I am so excited. I had legend last month, and now I have another one. So there's a lot of pressure for me to jump in. Um, so welcome everybody. Really excited about today's topic. My name is Claudia Thompson. I'm the Director of Regional Development for BNI US, right now for everywhere. And I'm really excited to be with all of you for our BNI talk this month. We are talking about all things what makes a great leader. And so in order to have someone to talk about this, you need a great leader to speak about this with. So of course, I had to beg, and I didn't have to beg her. Gina Herald with a new title yet again. Me and Gina can pass like which title. We can play a game. So both her and I have started new roles. Really excited to hear more about what this role is. Senior Director of Learning and Business Growth. So unbelievable. She's working, I believe, with the franchise folks for BNI US. So something new again. But Gina is hands down one of the best trainers ever. I've been in corporate pretty much all my adult life. I have not seen anyone quite like Gina to be able to talk about things like leadership, sales execution, customer service, all of those things. She is a fantastic leader, came up at the ranks with Nordstrom's, and then came over to us. She's been an area director and then part of the global training team. So I can't say enough about Gina. And why I brought Gina on here today is because Gina and I went on a little tour. So not with NSYNC or anything, because I would have loved that too. But we went on in September. And last September, Gina came up with me in the cold. It started to become in the fall. We started our tour in Vermont and then made our way down to, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and then down to Baltimore. And then we went back up to New York. We were all over the place. And then Gina continued on to Miami and I think to Knoxville. But we had gone around and really we're training a lot of people. And so we talked a lot at length. We took I don't know, like 5-mile walks a day. Sometimes we were driving in the car a lot. It was incredible. I really got connected, talk about building relationships. And my admiration for Gina just like went up exponentially. But we had conversations about this, about what makes a great leader, leadership, teams, all of those things. And so Gina, I'm so happy to have you here and talk about this because I think it's really important. So yeah, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Claudia. It is my pleasure to be here. And as you know, I love this topic. And as I mentioned in the chat, I love leadership team training season as well. So it's such a great time to get out and meet people and just talk about what they're doing in their life and business and how BNI is working for them. So I love it.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody in September, come out to the in-person trainings. We love seeing you. And Jenny Butts is singing in the chat, which I love. All right, awesome. So the first one here, so what are some of the characteristics of a great leader? And I know that you can ramble these off, but I think it's important, especially for the people that are watching this. What would you say are some of great characteristics?
I love that question. As I was contemplating this and we were talking about it earlier in the week, I was thinking the first thing that comes to my mind is someone who has a vision or knows where they're going, what they want to accomplish, a results-oriented, achieving type person. And I think we have so many of those in BNI. That's what draws people to entrepreneurship, I think, is they have a vision for what they want to build in their life or in their business, and they decide to start a business maybe around something that started out as a hobby or something that started out as a passion and has now become a business. So I think vision is definitely one of the things. I think someone who's results oriented, goal oriented, someone who is who leads by example. So they're walking the talk. They're not just giving it lip service. They're actually doing the things that they're asking the people around them to buy in to doing. I also think, we talk about, John Maxwell says leadership is influence. Well, what is influence? It's really the ability to inspire and encourage a group of people to achieve something together. And so I think somebody who can influence people and, help them embrace the idea of what the vision is to come along on this journey. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. What are some of the characteristics that come to your mind when you think of what a great leader is? I like to think about the word effective too. To me, effectiveness, if I'm a leader, is important. Am I achieving my goals? Am I articulating the vision? Matt, yes, a great listener. Leaders are listeners. Absolutely. I love that one. Jenny and I talk about that a lot, actually. Listening and listening really to what's being said and what people need and what they're telling you. They are sometimes telling you how we can get better. And if we listen and put those things into action, I think that makes a great leader as well. All right, Rachel's got several in here. Lead by example. Yes, I love that one. Compassionate, driven, a teacher-student mindset. I think leaders are learners. That's another one too, right? We have to be a constant learner. I think it's John Maxwell who says, I can't take a group of people beyond where I am in my own ability to lead and influence. And so being able to receive coaching and to give coaching with the mindset of my heart and desire is to help you get better. So as a leader, I think that too. Jenny, humility, absolutely. That is at the top of the list as well. So lots of great characteristics there. There's a few more coming in from Cherie. Is it Cherie or Sherry? Integrity, yes. Self-awareness, so important as a leader. I know as a young leader, and this is just true of me, I am a D on the disc, if you understand that at all. And I used to run people over, not intentionally. That was just my modus operandi. Thankfully, though, people loved me enough to say, hey, you know what? That's probably not the best approach if you want to grow as a leader. And I'm grateful for all those people who were willing to tell me I had lettuce in my teeth. So thank you.
Yeah.
Decisiveness. I love that one. Decisiveness. That's an excellent one. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions that are not popular as a leader, and yet we have to do those things. And I think about that in BNI. Sometimes we need a venue change, or sometimes on the membership committee, we need to make a decision that someone is no longer a good fit for our chapter, or we need to give them some tough love and some hard coaching. And so I think decisiveness and adaptability, love that one. Accountability, absolutely. You guys have a great list going here. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the thing about humility, Jenny had mentioned, I think that's the one for the most, because you have to take ego out of it. It's not about, like, in the times that you make decisions, and I've said this before, I used to, anytime I'm leading teams, there's like what matters to me, and then there's what matters. And in the big picture, is it about like, oh, am I going to lose out on referrals now if I kick out this person that's like awful as a member? Will I, is my team going to be mad at me if I make this decision? Is it right for the company, right? Is it right for the team or the organization or the chapter? And I think that humility is sometimes I might get egg on my face, or sometimes I may, it may be that I'm not going to be popular or be the best, but this is going to be what's right for the bigger, greater goal and the greater good. So yeah, so absolutely.
And that's what
Yeah.
makes being a leader difficult sometimes, Claudia, right? I mean, sometimes you have to not only be decisive, make a tough call, make a tough decision. And you do it though for the greater good, and you do it honestly out of love and care for the people that you're leading, knowing it's the right decision for us to get where we want to go in the long run. And I think that's a really important thing. And leadership's not for the faint at heart. People think they want to do it, and I love it. And I think the world needs leaders. It absolutely does. And so,
yeah,
we definitely need leaders.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to jump into the next question. How does serving in leadership benefit the member and their business? So I love this question.
I love this question too. How does serving leadership benefit the member? I think first and foremost, you have increased visibility because every week during the meeting, you are asked to stand and introduce yourself and share a little bit about your role. Maybe if your chapter has sort of that rhythm of how they do it, or at least maybe a sentence about your role, that gives you a little bit more visibility. I think it increases credibility substantially because your willingness to serve, and that's what leadership is, right? Serve, that's that word. Leadership is serving in your chapter and lifting other people up and bringing them along with you. And so I think it benefits us because we grow as leaders. We learn some of these characteristics that we just talked about. We become more self-aware. We become more decisive. We become more willing to coach and to be coachable. So I think all those things benefit us as a member. And as a byproduct of that, our business is going to benefit as well. And of course, most of us are familiar with VCP, right? Visibility, credibility, ultimately profitability. We have some statistics that tell us that on average, those who serve in leadership experience about a 12% increase in their closed business during the time that they serve. So your increased visibility and credibility is absolutely driving your profitability. And that is the top line and the bottom line benefit, in my opinion, when it comes to how it benefits you and your business. All those things are transferable.
Yeah, I think I saw, like, people are always surprised that I was pretty shy. I'm not shy, but I was shy to speak publicly because it's true. Because I was amongst grownups, right? I've been a BNI 22 years, so I was in my 20s, and there's all these like professionals, and I was very nervous about sounding not smart or not sounding like an expert. And when I finally took the leap and I became a visitor host, it was like such a difference, right? And I felt like people gave me more business as a result, and saw me, even knowing, like, I think people know sometimes you're scared or anything else, but the fact that you took a leap, it's like this person is willing to do something extra to make a difference. And so I think that I would agree with you as well. So moving into, why is it important to the chapter to ensure the right leaders are in each leadership team role? Because we've seen this, right? Sometimes people wait to the last minute, they throw people in, they think there's throwaway roles, and then we see later that there's sometimes, pretty big impact. So why do you would say specifically it's important?
Well, I'm sure nobody on this call, but other people we know, because the people on this call are proactive overachievers, which is why they're on this call. In all honesty, though, what's so important about this, and certainly, Claudia, for us to not wait till the last minute, is we want to set people up to thrive in their role. We want to set them up and leverage their strengths in the chapter so that everybody brings their best self and the skills that they have for the various roles into the chapter. And that impacts everything. Our mission, as you all know, is to help members increase their business. When the chapter is thriving and functioning well, all the member businesses have an opportunity to thrive as well. So from my perspective, I feel like it's so important because we can set people up for success. They'll enjoy the role they're in. They'll work in their, as Dr. Meisner likes to say, their flame and not in their wax. And they'll have an opportunity to really make a contribution to the success of the chapter. And so I think being thoughtful about so we started out in the beginning, kind of generalized what are the characteristics of a great leader, an effective leader. I think we can also look at, for each individual role, what are some specific characteristics maybe that lend to success in each individual role? And those are good questions to ask, and think about what, the visitor host, someone who excels at hospitality, right? And helps people to feel welcome and really wants to be a connector. Our vice president, a lot of times, somebody who has some detail orientation and can manage our chapter goals and those kind of things, and is also willing to embrace accountability and have tough conversations sometimes. That person can also lead a team. So when you think about the importance of getting people in the right role, we want to look at, what is this person really gifted at, and how can we leverage their strengths in the chapter to help our chapter be a successful entity? And then all the businesses individually will have a better chance of success as well. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, for myself, if I think back to being a member, and I was a member of like a 40-person chapter, it was like multi-million-dollar chapter. They make more now. You know, I think about that the visitor hosts were really great with me. They took really good care of me. They connected me with the right people right away. Everyone was just welcoming. It felt like everyone was a visitor host. And then the other piece was they assigned me a mentor once I became, you know, right away. I was in, you know, business. I was in business technology, and they connected me with the printer. And he had been a member for like 10 or 15 years at the time. So they really were thoughtful about that. And I remember, and if it wasn't for him, you know, and then making sure I took MSP, like all of those things, if I didn't do that, I would be like, oh, okay. And I've heard so many people, again, while we had, you know, a lot of the people when we were doing a lot of the diversity work, they're like, I felt not welcomed. Like it makes such an impact. You think like just throwing someone in the role, and someone's like, no one talked to me. I was just in the corner. I'm an introvert, and no one, you know, no one connected me with anyone. So I kind of just left. So it's really important to make sure that you have every single person in the right role. So
Wait, before we go on from that one, I
yes.
think too that when you think about, and Jenny put in the chat, choose your mentor coordinators and your visitor hosts wisely. Claudia mentioned, you mentioned when you teed up this question, sometimes we feel like certain roles are throwaway roles. Oh, all that's left now is visitor host. So you drew the short straw, Claudia. And that's not the case. This is the reason too, you guys, that I get on my soapbox. And I know that shocks all of you who know me, that I get on my soapbox about the fact that small chapters do not serve our members, and they do not serve our member businesses. If we can't field a full leadership team to fill every role to direct the chapter towards success, chances are our members are going to struggle. And then we end up recycling a lot of the same leaders too, and they get burnt out. And so it's so important for us to think about that as well. Where can we really set someone up to be successful? And what does it mean to the chapter? And so I think having those conversations is an important thing. And you're right, helping people feel welcome. I joined my chapter on the spot because the visitor host, just like you said, they welcomed me, they oriented me, they let me know what was going to happen throughout the meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, they handed me the application and invited me to become part of their referral team. And I said, where do I sign?
Yeah.
And I know that's not the experience everywhere. And so, we're on a crusade, the people on this call anyway, to make sure that that does become the experience everywhere. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, you don't think about it from your perspective, but if you have an entrepreneurial, more broader view of things, you're like, yeah, this is the brand. You know, like I have to make sure if anybody here owns franchises, you know, like if you own ironically from a vegan, but a McDonald's, you want to make sure that you have everything that the other McDonald's down the street has, right? Because it impacts the business. They have a bad experience there, they're going to think about it everywhere. So it's really also, you know, more of that as even pertaining to your own fellow members. You know, how does it benefit the chapter to give everyone an opportunity to serve on the leadership team?
I love this question. And here's why. When I was in Toastmasters, this was an interesting thing. Toastmasters, like BNI, is a weekly meeting, and it is internally run. The members of the club run the group, and same kind of thing. And what was interesting to me is a lot of people wouldn't necessarily volunteer or recommend themselves for a role. And yet when you would ask them, they would gladly serve and they would do really well. And so for us as leaders, one of the things that we can do is sort of be on the lookout, have our antenna up for where people might excel. And sometimes we need to invite them to have an opportunity to serve in leadership. And it benefits the chapter because we have diversity of thought. We have diversity of experience. We have people who are willing, you guys talk about the 5 dysfunctions of a team in the chat. We have people who are willing to engage in healthy conflict for the good of the chapter because we have diverse viewpoints, and that's a positive thing. And we want everybody to have the opportunity to help the chapter soar and do well and thrive. And that takes a number of people, as most of you know. And so the more opportunity we can give, that's less burnout that some people have. Now, look, don't hear what I'm not saying though, too, because sometimes somebody wants to be the mentor coordinator for the next 10 years because they're really good at it and they want to meet all the new members. Some roles are a little more prone to burnout than others. I think we have to take every situation on a case-by-case basis, and we have to look at it and say, is this what's best for the chapter right now? Or what about, Claudia is a fairly new member. She might have a great perspective though on bringing a fresh education uh, perspective to the chapter from an educational coordinator standpoint. So just because someone hasn't been in long either doesn't mean they can't be an effective leader. And I think those are things we need to consider as well. So I think it's a great benefit to the chapter to just have diversity of thought and diversity of experience and diversity of abilities on the team and a willingness to be able to work together. And I also think it builds the community. And that's a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was asked to be visitor host, which makes sense because I was in sales and like that makes sense for my skill set. And we launch chapters, everybody, with everyone that's new, and we have to assign leadership roles. So we will make sure that they get the training. Sometimes you think, well, Gina can't be president, but like, if I know Gina's really great at speaking and she's good at delegation, like it seems to be in her business and just in general, I can give her a chance. I think that's the thing is like, and she's more likely to stay as member. It increases retention. If she has some visibility and she's there, it may more likely she doesn't feel like it's cliquey and that she's like, yeah, they think of me as a value add. I'm going to stay. So think about that instead of like not giving people a chance for sure. Now, we talked about benefits. What are some of the challenges that we face recruiting folks to come and step up to leadership for the upcoming? Because we're in it right now. We're in it right now, which is good. So I
Yeah,
think
we're
this will be helpful.
getting ready to start this thing. I think, for all the years I was in the field, and that was many years, it was, a dozen years or more, we saw things like people are they're very busy in their business and they view it as a massive time commitment. So I think we need to be clear about expectations and help them understand what the benefits are, because sometimes they get more focused on the challenges. Some of the challenges are, especially in a small chapter, that we don't have any fresh perspectives. We don't have any new leaders, any potential to put somebody in a different role to give them an opportunity. So I think that can be another one. And, time is obviously, the biggest one, I think. The other one is with small chapters, we don't have a lot of people to choose from. I think the other thing is sometimes people, Claudia, to the point you were just making, sometimes people feel like I'm not qualified. I mean, like you said, in a brand new chapter, guess what? No one's qualified because they've not done the role. And you guys have heard me say this a million times. The expert at anything was once a beginner, and learning is a process. So we need to encourage people that you can do that. We're going to train you and teach you how to do it. You can do this, right? Sometimes we just need to loan them a little bit of our confidence in them, and people will rise to the level of our expectations. When we demonstrate that we have confidence in them in this role, when I visited the chapter, I've observed you doing this or saying this or conducting yourself this way, and that's impressive. And I think you would be a great education coordinator or great mentor coordinator, whatever that is. So I think sometimes we just face the challenge too of people might really be great in a role. They're personally reluctant to put themselves out there. So we need to encourage them and invite them to be willing to serve. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat too, if there are other challenges.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I have a list as well. I would like to jump in on this one.
Yes, go.
Because on our tour that we had, I think we saw lots of challenges when you wait to the last minute, when you, again, I think too, and not anyone on this call, there's sometimes people like control and they feel like they can do it better. And it's not bad, right? Because at the end, they want the chapter to do well, but they think that they're the only ones that can do it. And so sometimes they won't let go. We also read a book earlier in the year, Speed of Trust, and it talks about extending trust. And sometimes you have to extend trust. If any of you who run teams or business, sometimes it can't be you, right? If you're trying to grow, you cannot do it all yourself. And so you have to try and extend, especially if you're getting burnt out, and you have to extend trust. And sometimes they're not going to do it as well. Sometimes they do it better. Sometimes they're just doing something, but how can they learn if they don't experience it? And so I think letting go of the control and doing things because you might see something from a different perspective. And it's not to say that you can't still be a leader from the back, right? You don't have to physically have a role. And I think that that's the case. And then the other thing is, again, waiting to the last minute. So then you're sort of scrambling. I should say right away, I mean, this was one of my favorite things to do as an area director as well, back in the day, it would be October. You know, I'd see somebody come to an event or I'd be at a chapter visit and I'd say, wow, this is the next president. We'd be grooming them from that time. We'd be setting them up to potentially be one of the options as the next president. So starting to mentor people early and setting them up to see the difference, you know? So I think that that's also something that we have to do more of as well.
Claudia, I don't
So,
know if you guys ever did it in your old franchise. I know one of the things we used to do was, especially for the ELT, the executive leadership team, we actually trained a backup for each of those roles.
mhm,
Like, so
yeah,
we trained a bench, an
yeah,
ELT bench, because things happen, life happens, job changes happen. And if you lose somebody midterm, you have someone else who is ready and prepared to
mhm,
step into that role. Again, a challenge we face in that situation is in a smaller chapter, you don't have the benefit sometimes of having enough members to be able to do that. I think that's one of the ways we can be proactive. You know, and Jenny and I have talked a lot recently just about shadowing and learning. That's how you learn, right? Is by watching someone else. So bringing that person along with you. Again, Claudia, I've observed you doing this, or this. I think you would be great at this role. I would love to just kind of take you along with me for the next month or so. So, and let's talk about it, right? And have some fun with it.
yeah, and but before I say what I'm going to say, anybody that's here live and has any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But I remember one of the best things, I think, that the chapter that I was in for most of my time was that we would not only shadow, but we would literally start like taking them anywhere that we went. And we would know, if I know that Jenny is going to be potentially the next president, we'd start like auditioning people and to hey, I'm here, but why don't you just run the meeting? Instead of it just being the vice president, we would pick someone else to see how they did. And so we started doing that, even just to give them some VCP, you know, and just to give some people leadership. And I think that that was one of the best things that I saw. So I started with the chapters that we launched. I started incorporating that. I said, every now and then, why don't you just put someone in just to, you know, why don't we have someone else? And education coordinators, you're not responsible for for delivering it every week. You're making sure that it gets delivered. So you can actually pass that off and delegate it to someone else. So helping someone else do that, I mean, that was something that I've seen. And again, you get more voices. It's not just the same people every time. So yeah. So I don't see any questions yet. But yeah, so if anyone has any here, while we're waiting for any questions, if any, Gina, why don't you share more about your new role?
Oh, all right. Well, let's see. Senior Director of Learning and Business Growth. I wonder what that means. Well, the first and foremost, we are expanding or really sort of ramping up what used to be called the Medallion Program. Some of you may be familiar with that. You may have members in your chapters that are part of the former Medallion Program. It is being reimagined as now a partner program, and our goal is to work with franchisors who have multiple members in various chapters across the country and continue to help them put new franchisees in BNI chapters. We hear over and over and over again that of all the marketing strategies new franchisees engage in, that referrals and or specifically BNI is the best return on their investment. And we know that.
Mm,
So part of
yeah.
the goal, what learning means in that case, is that I will work directly with the brand presidents or the franchisor to try to tailor a little bit of training and learning for them so they can leverage BNI better. I mean, you guys all know people who come in and they think they bought a meeting and they don't realize they bought a system. And so our goal is to be more proactive and to actually let them know you're buying a system and here's the best way to implement it. You know, Jenny and I like to talk about here's the best way to make it embedded into your business. It becomes a part of what you do. And so that's part of it. And then also on the business development side, I will be supporting the franchise development efforts too. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. We'll see.
I love that. I'm gonna pretend that our trip inspired a lot of that because I think we did see a lot of because we had different integrations both like, some from core, and just being out there in the field. I think you and I have been a lot of places, and wanting people to do things. And the thing is that I find it's not that people are adamantly wanting to be against what we have, right? Because something inspired them to take on action, but they really do want to do well, and use our product. So I think what you're going to be doing is extraordinary. And I love that this medallion program is actually going to be taking it to the next level, with those folks. So that's really great. So I see a couple of questions in the chat. So from one Miss Jenny Butts, is how can chapter success coaches influence chapter leaders when the leaders want leaders to be in a role the coach knows will be detrimental to the chapter? So I love this question, and I would really want to hear your answer, Gina.
That is a great question. And this is something that we do a little bit of coaching on, and we talk about a lot of times. Claudia, as you were mentioning, even I've seen this many times over the years with the newly launched chapter. The person who was the first member thinks, well, this is my chapter and I'm going to be the president. And if that's not what's best for the chapter, then this is where, as a leader, our chapter success coach, now, you guys probably know how this works, and Jenny's been kicking it off and we've been talking about it. There is a recommendation committee, which generally consists of the current executive leadership team and the coach, very involved in this process. And so if the current team puts someone's name in the hat and we feel like it's not the best fit, if it were me, I would first employ a questioning strategy. I see that you're recommending Claudia to be president. Tell me a little bit about what makes her the best candidate in your mind. And then, maybe if you see something that you feel like makes that person not a great candidate, so I always try to turn your statements into questions. Turn your statement into a question. So, okay, so I hear you saying that Claudia is da 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 da. What would you say about her ability to do X, right? To be on time, right? To manage the clock or whatever that is. And so,
Yeah.
and if you have certain information about them that is not appropriate maybe to be shared necessarily, you have to be very diplomatic about that and say, although this is not the forum for a discussion on XYZ, there is some information that I'm aware of that makes this person not the best fit for the chapter. And we want to make a decision that's in the best interest of the chapter. Matt Lowe's out there and he knows that Tom Fleming would say, take a stand for the chapter.
That's right.
You've got to take a stand for the chapter. And so we want to do what's in the best interest of the chapter. So if someone is not an ideal fit, we need to just work through. And this is why too, we would recommend, and I know in our old franchise back in the day, we used to recommend 3 candidates for each of the top, for each of the 3 roles, the ELT roles, so we had multiple people to choose from. Because again,
Right.
oftentimes someone thinks, well, it's my turn to be president, and yet we know it's not the best fit for the chapter. So I won't pretend those are easy conversations. You could also use the grow coaching model, and you could say, well, what's the goal for the role? And then what's the reality of this person's skill set, or the reality of how that might impact the chapter?
Mm-hmm.
In most coaching scenarios, they will encourage you to avoid why questions, because why questions sometimes take us down the road. So try to use how and what questions if we can. How might it impact the chapter if, or what would it look like if? So I think using some of those questions, and maybe using what other options, to use the grow coaching model do we have, and then what will we choose to do? So, and I would love to hear from the rest of you, Claudia, Jenny, feel free to chime in. You guys have been doing this a long time too.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I 100%. And I think a lot of times the chapter thinks it's an election. So like, Jenny wants to be president, so she's going to take everyone to breakfast and tell them, like, if they ask, tell them that you want me to be president. But Jenny may not be the right person again. And it's not about hurting people's feelings. It's like, what is going to make the difference for the chapter? And if she's not the right person, you have to be able to know, because you were running this like a business. And so the chapter success coaches, again, just like we tell our membership committee folks, our vice presidents, like, you have to be doing what's best for the chapter. You can't, it's not about people liking you. Some people may be disappointed, right? We have disappointments in life all the time, but it's very important for the chapter to understand this is a decision that we're doing. And you can pull out we have the roles, right? You have an education moment with the roles and the descriptions, and you can just say, well, based on this, the characteristics and the qualities are this person is not a match for that. And so we found that there's these other folks, but that's why, again, you want to start sort of like deciding this early and looking at people early so you can come with lots of really good options. So I don't know if anybody else, we have lots of things in the chat. Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw anything. Yes, yeah, oh, the conversations can happen between the members of the current executive leadership team when they don't agree about someone. Yep, but then that's why for those of you on ELTs in your leadership teams, like that's why you want to make sure your coach is there. That way that there's some, consistency and that it doesn't seem like it's favoritism, so that you doesn't rest on just a few of you for sure. Yes, Gina.
And Claudia, so to go back, kind of circle back too, that you tie this really well together with what Jenny was talking about in the chat too. With you talked about the speed of trust. Jenny, we mentioned the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Trust is the foundational piece of strong teams and relationships. And so when we're having these conversations, we have a fear of conflict to say, from my perspective, Claudia would be a better fit in this role. Or perhaps she's not the ideal fit for this role. And yet, so we have to be willing to engage in that unfiltered conflict. I'm not talking about talons bared, fur flying. I'm talking about a battle for ideas, for the best idea, for the best situation, the best scenario for our chapter. And so we have to be willing to have those conversations. And when we trust each other, and when we want what's best for the chapter, and when we're focused on that, I think we can have good conversations that are tough conversations sometimes around these sorts of things. And I'm not ever going to pretend that any of these conversations are easy. They're not. They're not. But you guys, look, if we love someone though, and we care about someone, and we care about our members, that's why we're all here. We want to have those tough conversations and take a stand for the chapter. And that's not, so as I said earlier, leadership is not for the faint at heart. You have to have courage. You got to have some courage if you want to be a leader. So decisiveness is one thing, but you can also be a bull in a china shop and be decisive without the right kind of courage. And then we've gone down a road. So I think we have to be careful with some of those things too. But I love how I feel like that fits together with trust and conflict, the willingness to engage in successful positive conflict for the right reasons. And I think that all fits into this process.
Yeah, trust and integrity are key for sure when doing this process. Absolutely. And then from Lee, so whose responsibility is it to contact visitors who visits your chapter? Is it the person who invited the person? Interesting.
That's a great question. Hopefully, I think it's a couple of things. If I invited someone to my chapter, I'm certainly going to follow up with them. How many salespeople do we have on the call today? I'll wait so everybody's saying, but yeah, so we're all in sales. So we know that the fortune's in the follow-up. If I invited Claudia, I want her to know that I'm grateful that she gave me her time. Time is your most valuable asset. It is a finite resource. When someone invests their time to come to a BNI meeting, sometimes they said yes just because it's you, right? Jenny Butts, they just say, yeah, I'm going to come. It's Jenny, I'm coming. And when we impress them with the meeting, now we have an opportunity. They're also looking for something usually, and they came looking for a solution to a challenge they're having in their business. So if I invited them, I'm definitely going to follow up. I also believe that the visitor host needs to follow up. And we need to let the person know that we're glad they came. We would love to help them grow their business and achieve their goals with using BNI. And I think, you can overwhelm people, and we don't want to do that. And I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting, though, that sales statistics would dictate that most sales are made between touch point 5 and touch point 12. That's a pretty broad range. Now, not all of those have to be phone calls. We have some automated touch points in our system. And so those are good things that let the member or the guest know, hey, we see you're registered. We're looking forward to meeting you. Great, we met you. Thanks for taking the time to come to the meeting and explore how BNI can help you grow your business. And oh, by the way, we're going to check back with you in a day or two if you didn't apply already, to make sure that we can answer any additional questions and just to follow up with you. So I think, not only would the person who invited them ideally follow up, our visitor host team would too, just to close the gap or answer any questions. And sometimes the person might not tell, like if I invited Claudia to my meeting and it turns out that she loves what she sees, but this isn't the right day, time, or location, she might not want to make me feel bad, right? So she may not say, Gina, I love this, and this time slot doesn't work for me. She might say that to the visitor host. Boy, I really enjoyed the meeting. And I'll tell you right now, when I first visited BNI, I really wasn't necessarily aware that there was more than one chapter. I went to the one I went to, and that's the one I joined. A lot of times people don't know. So I think we need to follow up multiple times for multiple reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, that's a really great point. And also too, I mean, yeah, I make an assumption. I'm like, well, this is my really good friend. Like they would have already told me if they were interested. And I've had so many people say, how come you've never asked me? Or no one asked me to join. Like you all, again, that's probably the number one thing I hear. Well, no one asked me to actually put an application in. So make sure you're doing your visitor host orientation every single time, and that there's follow-up, and that you are following up. You yourself, if you invited them, ask them to submit an application. You invited them there for a reason. You didn't invite them there just to not tell them about this opportunity. They may not think that you want them in. They may not think they're good enough. I've heard all kinds of things. So make sure for certain that there's lots of touch points to Gina's point. So yes, go ahead, Gina.
I think as that relates to the visitor host too, as I think about it, when we're setting people up for success, there are distinct characteristics that work well with the visitor hosts. Those who excel at hospitality and really will extend a warm welcome and make sure they connect people during open networking. That's one set of skills. Our visitor host closer is maybe someone who has a little bit of a different skill set, who is very comfortable asking for, asking the individual to consider this to grow their business and to submit the application, to our membership committee. So I think when you're thinking about roles, again, how can we set people up to succeed? They will enjoy so much more what they're doing as a leader. They'll look forward to the chapter meeting. I mean, those people out there who are visitor hosts who love that role, the visitor host greeter, they can't wait for their meeting each week because they're looking forward to the new people they're going to meet, right? Because they're going to grow their network, and they love that. And then the closers are results oriented. They love the opportunity to close that loop and help somebody make a decision. So as we're thinking about that and what makes a good fit for those roles, those are some of the things you can consider too. Who's good at the follow-up? Who's a little more detail oriented maybe, and who's going to do well with the follow-up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's our time. I wanted to thank you so much, Gina, again, from a hotel room somewhere in Orlando. And by the way, our U.S. National Conference is in Orlando next year in 2026. And I would be remiss to not mention the backgrounds that Gina and I are donning are for Sydney for global convention in November. So definitely look that up and join us. We'll be everywhere. But thank you so much, Gina, for your time, for your insight, for your experience. We really, truly value that. We're excited to have you here. And then thank you, everyone, for joining us today live, or if you're watching it afterwards on the YouTube page. Next month, it's our every June, we usually talk to folks who are part of the LGBTQ community, that are members, that are staff. And so we'll have a panel next month, June 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you join us and check your regional events calendars for these every second Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much again, Claudia Thompson. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next month.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Claudia. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.